Hey, it's been a while since I last published a video, so I thought I'd post one on the Chester Devs meetup that I went to the other week. So at Chester Devs, they usually have some sort of expert come in and talk to us for around about 2 hours on a topic, and we really go into depth on that topic. But occasionally they'll do like a lightning talk session where we'll have like loads and loads of different presentations that last around 10 minutes long. So for the other week's meetup, the person that was supposed to be doing the long form talk actually cancelled sort of last minute, so we ended up doing sort of 3 different talks. 3 different people came in to give talks, so you kind of had the best of both worlds. It kind of had the advantages of the lightning talks in the fact that we got to cover 3 different topics as opposed to just the one, and it also had the advantage of the longer form ones because each talk lasted around like 45 minutes, something like that, so we got to do more than just skim the surface. So I was just going to talk about each one of those talks really. The first one was like an Fsharp demo, the computer language Fsharp. The second one was like an accountant that came in and talked about the tax changes that are affecting contractors. And then the third one was a guy that came in to talk about sort of the importance of doing your own side projects. So yeah, the first one was like an Fsharp demo. It's a .NET language, so I've never written a line of code in a .NET language before. Obviously, I'm sort of aware of them from my 2 years in IT recruitment. We used to hire .NET developers, so like C# and VB. But all my experiences with more like object-oriented languages. So I did a module at university on Perl, which is object-oriented. I'm sort of teaching myself PHP at the moment, again, object-oriented. So yeah, for this demo, he sort of wrote a program live in front of us, and he did a game of life example. I don't know if you've heard of the game of life. I'd sort of seen it before on like Richard Dawkins documentaries and things. It's like a computer program where there's like loads and loads of cells, and sort of each one's alive depending on the rules around it, and there's sort of like 4 rules that govern it. So he programmed that that sort of simulation in front of us. Obviously my undergrad degree was in like biology, so I'm interested in that whole evolutionary side and sort of how those rules can affect things. So that was pretty much the best example he could have done for myself anyway. Yeah, so I always go to these things, and I was a bit out of my depth on this first presentation, but even when people talk about tech, which is sort of way beyond what I'm looking at the moment, I always seem to get something out of it. I'll sort of take some bit of information away from it, and even it sticks in my mind somewhere, and then maybe months later someone else will mention another topic, and I can kind of go, oh yeah, that's what was being talked about way back when I was sort of expressionless, just staring and not really understanding what was going on. So yeah, he covered kind of the differences between like object-oriented and functional languages. So object-oriented sort of deals with objects, whereas functional languages, he was explaining, sort of splits functions up into modules and deals with it that way. So he wrote the whole code in Microsoft Visual Studio, so again it's kind of good to see that in action. So when you iterate in a functional language, he's explaining it's not really done by loops. So in object-oriented languages, you've kind of got your variables and you iterate over them using all the loops you use, like do loops and for each loops and things. But in a functional language, he was saying it's done by recursion of a function. So I didn't really understand fully what was going on there, but I could see there is a difference, and I could see what would happen in an object-oriented language, and then see that something slightly different was going on here. So I'm sure that will come in handy, maybe in a few months, a few years. But yeah, it was quite impressive because he said there's like loads of GitHub projects out there, so you can go and see all the source code for this sort of game of life programs, and they usually take up like 280 lines of code, whereas in this example using Fsharp he'd managed to do it in around about 70 lines of code. So he's kind of, it's a third of the size. So again, that was quite impressive, because as you get more into code you realise sort of it's important to write beautiful code, but also short and concise code. So yeah, he's just basically in front of us live proof that that's what Fsharp can be used for. One of the most impressive things that I found from his presentation was he wrote this program in front of us live, pressed go to run it, and it more or less ran first time, which I don't know if anyone has ever written code that's listening, but that doesn't usually happen. You usually spend quite a large proportion of your time writing the code, but then an even more significant proportion of your time debugging the code. It never runs first time usually, and sort of one of the good skills to pick up is to be able to read the error reports and then hone in on where the problem is and sort of debug it that way. But he ran it. It didn't quite run first time, but more or less ran. But from the error report that he got and seeing the output, he knew exactly where he'd gone wrong. So he went straight to that, fixed it, explained what had gone wrong, ran it, and then it ran. So that was pretty cool. The second talk was, an accountant coming in, talking about the tax changes that are affecting contractors. So she kind of covered like the differences between limited companies, umbrella companies, and sole traders, and the advantages and disadvantages to each one. And then basically explained that the HMRC is kind of trying to even the playing field with between contractors and full-time employees, and just explaining the differences that they're going to have. So I'm not really going to go into detail into that, but that was quite interesting because I'm kind of helping a few people with different projects at the moment, sort of helping them with the layouts of their sites, the design, maybe the code, and the SEO as well. So the idea is to maybe go freelance, possibly in the new year, still do full-time work, but sort of on the side go freelance. So that kind of gave me food for thought on, would I be a sole trader? Would I be a limited company? All that kind of thing. And then we exchanged contact details as well. And she said I'm more than welcome to get in touch if I need any further advice. So that was definitely valuable as well. And then the third one, another great talk, was on kind of the importance of side projects. So there was a guy that came along, he manages a development team, and he was saying that he always encourages his employees to have side projects. And obviously at the moment I've got the everythingchester.co.uk one, so I could kind of relate to that as well. But he says he always enters his team into this Hack Manchester competition, and they've won like 3 years on the run. He said he didn't take part this year because he wanted to give someone else a chance. But he really advocates his employees doing side projects, and he always he was on about the importance of making time in your week as well. And he was obviously, everyone's busy, he has kids himself and things, but just dedicating an hour or so here or there for working on your own side projects, something that's nothing to do with your usual work, but just exploring a new topic and just sort of like tinkering around with it as well. He was on about the main reasons why side projects fail, and it's usually due to either 1, time, or 2, motivation. And I could kind of relate to that as well, because obviously I've got the Everything Chester site, and I was rushing home from work every single night and spending like 6 hours on it. And then since I did the Build Your Business shows for work, I was kind of away from home, not working on it there, and I've kind of come back and not picked it up as much as I would have liked to. I really need to make some time for that, but there's other things going on. So I had a week off work the other week and ended up updating my home site. It's kind of like an extension of my CV. So that's fully got Bootstrap integrated into it now. It is mobile responsive, and actually even more mobile responsive than Everything Chester. So you kind of go down these rabbit holes, and now that I've looked at the code for Everything Chester, I now need to improve that so it is as responsive as my homepage. And then there's loads of little things in there which I hadn't noticed before, and I'm like, I need to go and fix that. So before I'm even going to get to write new blog posts for Everything Chester, now just the code, I just want to go in and tinker with it and improve it. So there's always something. It's like spinning plates, and you've got to choose your battles and where you're going to spend your time as well. So that was kind of cool. But he kind of gave some examples. So he's big on experimenting with like Echo Prime and things like that, or Amazon Echo Prime. Don't know where I came up with that from. So all these devices where you can kind of talk to them and they'll answer questions and things. So he's kind of hacked his way through that, so he can speak to it and say, hey, order my last Domino's delivery, and it'll just do it. It'll just go away, go to the pizza site, order it, and it'll turn up exactly the same order that you delivered last time. That was pretty cool. And then he showed us like some TV commercials for all these devices, and just to give us an idea of what they can do. And then he gave us a second example as well, how he kind of hacked his way into his own Yale alarm system, which he explained probably isn't too good, but it was kind of shocking of how he could do that. So Yale kind of released their API, so we used that. But then it wasn't quite doing what he wanted it to do, so he's kind of doing man-in-the-middle attacks and packet sniffing and things. Just kind of feeling his way around it, because he obviously had to understand the hardware, kind of watch a few YouTube videos on that and read a bit of the documentation, and then he had to sort of work out what languages they were written in and teach himself a bit of that. But again, he said it probably took about 12 hours in all, and he was, he's able to sit in his bedroom and go, like speak to the alarm system and just say, on the ground floor kind of thing. You can probably see some of the actual practical problems of this. Someone could stand outside your house and talk to your alarm system. So, but it's just kind of, obviously he's learned a lot from that experience and some of the skills. So yeah, that's cool. Obviously we always have a half-time break, have some pizza, get to network, socialise a bit, and then went to the pub afterwards, where I ended up, usually talk to like kind of a lot of people there, but it's just me and this one other guy were just like wrapped in conversation for like over a couple of pints. He's does SQL all day, every day for clients, and I'm picking up a bit more SQL at work as well. So yeah, discussing that, but then we kind of moved on to, I don't know, like social media algorithms and how our feeds decide what to show and what not to show, and then the ethics behind that and who should make that decision, and the whole, I don't know if you've heard about like, echo chambers. It kind of, your content will be served on what you like and what you respond to. So maybe you have a certain religious belief, or maybe you have a certain political belief, but you will be served by your social media kind of what you're already seeing. So yeah, it was kind of like the sociological side of that as well, and also the ethics and things behind it. And from there we covered like, I don't know, history and religion and everything. We kind of put the world to rights. But yeah, it's just cool to have those kind of conversations with like-minded people. So yeah, I just thought I'd share those experiences. My homepage that I've updated is christopher-john-roberts.appspot.com. It's just it's basically served up from Google. It's completely free for me to do that. As more traffic goes to it, the same with Finchester, I'll move it to another paid-for server, and I'm just using that subdomain. I don't need anything special. It's literally just a link for my CV for anyone who's curious and wants to dig a bit deeper, rather than the 4-page document that is my CV. I know I've worked in recruitment, it should only be 2, but I like to, it's not even waffle, it's I've just got that many things to say. But yeah, cool, I'll catch you again soon.